trade talk negotiations have resumed with Canada after it scrapped plans for a tax on U.S. tech firms, which President Trump called the blatant attack. He called that tax, rather, a blatant attack. Now both countries aim to reach a deal by July 21st. This comes as the Senate this comes as the 90-day pause on most other tariffs are set to expire next week. Markets are up slightly today on the news. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady is tracking the latest for us. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
All right, so what could be laid out in this new deal between the United States and Canada? Sounds interesting, sounds promising.
So you think about the things that we get from Canada, right?
Oil.
Over 20, well, oil, yeah, oil's a big one. Oil's a very big one. Over 20% of the steel that we use here. Of course, a lot of our auto companies have supply chains that are very much interlinked between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. And the president has often noted dairy as a sticking point, that the U.S. cannot easily sell into the Canadian market when it comes to cheese, milk, yogurt, other things. Of course, Wisconsin being a big seller over the border, and that being that Canada subsidizes their dairy industry. So that's another big one. But broadly, I'm sort of thinking, how would this work? Because there's already an existing trade agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada that the first time it would be up for review is next year. So we're talking about a deal, but there's already a deal to be had, and it actually involves another country. So that's something to watch there.
Yeah, it's so interesting because President Trump was rightfully so applauded for revamping NAFTA in his first term, and it was a great trade deal that everybody applauded. It was bipartisan, and now he seems to be undoing all of that. Let's talk about what's going on with China. Last week, the White House said it had a framework for a deal with China. Yesterday, the president said China was going to pay. I want to play a little bit of what he had to say.
China's going to be paying a lot of tariffs, but we have a big deficit. They understand that. I have a great relationship with President Xi. We have to do something about the deficit because we have a big trade deficit with China. Biden let it get up to $1 trillion. Think of it, $1 trillion deficit with one country. He let them just take them over the coals. We're not going to do that. But we're doing a rare earth deal, but we're also doing, remember, we have all of the airplane parts. They can't fly their airplanes without us. So we had, some guards also. But it should have never gotten that way because we should have been doing they call it magnets. It's a rare earth, but they call it magnets, a specific type. And they're making those magnets for us right now, and things are well. And we have a deal with China. It's a good deal, I think, hopefully for everybody.
There's a lot in there. What's the takeaway, Kelly?
I think the takeaway is this is an agreement on a framework of a deal. There are still a lot of things to be worked out, clearly, as he was saying in that clip that we just played. There's also the question of export restrictions on chips. China wants to have access to our semiconductor chips that NVIDIA makes, the very highest level. They don't right now because we don't want China to get ahead in the AI race. So that's going to be another one. But right now, there is a 10% tax on all U.S. goods going into China and then a 30% tax on all Chinese goods coming into the U.S. So at the end of the day, that is still something that importers are going to pay unless they figure out a different place to get their goods from.
All right. The president claims that there's a buyer for TikTok. I haven't seen anything. Do we know, or do we have any hints at who it could possibly be?
So in that same interview with Fox, he mentioned that he might be saying who it is in the next 2 weeks. The big thing, though, right? The big thing, though, is remember before all of this back and forth with China started, he did say there was a deal, and then when they walked away from the table, that sort of fell apart because Beijing is going to likely have to approve the sale because it is a Chinese company that owns TikTok. We know there's a number of investors that are interested in the bid. Frank McCourt, Project Liberty, also with Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary is a part of that. We know that a couple of others are involved. There's also some companies like App11 that have submitted a bid. We don't know exactly who, but maybe we'll hear something in the next 2 weeks. But of course, they're going to have to go through all the hoops around U.S. data and how that is stored and figure out this algorithm because that is owned by ByteDance, the Chinese company.
The algorithm is the key. That is the one thing that makes TikTok valuable. And we had Frank McCourt, you'll recall, on CBS Mornings, and we asked him, if you're not going to have access to the algorithm, then what's the point?
Right. No
one can really answer that. So he says that there's a different way to do it, that they figured it out. I don't know, but we'll see if he's one of those guys who ultimately wins that bid. Kelly O'Grady, good to have you here. Thank you. Happy Monday.